I want you to look at the honeybees. Come listen to them. Just look at the honeybees. Just listen to them everywhere. And I'll say one thing, that we benefit. I can see that benefit from bringing in the honeybees. Just look. You look at these cucumbers and the way that we've got them growing on this metal trellis. And we've had probably 3 electric storms in the past 2 weeks, and these dudes have just taken off. We have cucumbers coming out our ears, but that's okay. We always find something to do with the extra ones, with family and neighbors. But you can see that the beans are gonna, I'm not sure we're having a bet of which one's gonna touch first, the cucumbers or the beans. And so it's But just look at the bees. I've seen on some YouTube channels where everybody's not seeing a lot of bees in some areas, and I'm not sure why that is. But I can tell you that these honeybees have made a difference. You just look, these things are loaded with cucumbers everywhere.
You know, Mickey, so I think you brought up a really good point, because what happens to the vegetable or fruit when the flower does not get pollinated? Because you showed an example of that to me the other day, where the fruit was underdeveloped.
On squash and your cucumbers, it will look like a blossom end rot when you first see it, and you might mistake that for blossom end rot, but it's just where it didn't get pollinated. So it tried to grow a fruit, and then it only went so far, and it just dissolved away, become soft. And that's pretty common if you don't have enough bees. And can you imagine trying to hand pollinate all of these blooms? Without our bees, guys, we'll just starve to death. Now that's a fact. But I can really tell a difference from bringing in these honeybees this year of all the blooms and the pollination. And I mean, I haven't even fertilized these but twice this year with liquid calcium nitrate. That's the only thing that I've put on these cucumbers this year. Now, goal-oriented person, and I see a lot of videos on how you start your garden and how you grow your garden. I want to see the results of all the things that you try to explain and talk about. I want to see those results. And so we had talked about making these videos when we were initially planning and all that. That's fine and dandy, but I want to show everybody the results, and then we'll go and reverse, break it down and show how it's done. And I can just tell you, rabbit manure, that's the biggest key that I've got, is rabbit manure. We have had rabbits and have a lot of extra manure, but I have used liquid calcium nitrate twice. And I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago since I've even fertilized them. but we do keep them watered with our drip system, and they are just loaded. So we're having really good success with our cucumbers. Last year a blight came in and took out all of our cucumbers. We hardly got any. But this year we've already pickled more than we even did last year in the whole season. But if you want to see a really good example of Electroculture, let's go look at some tomatoes.
Hey, that's what I'm
And
excited
let me
about.
explain why those poles are in there. So as you can see, I just take regular farm fence and I make a hoop across it and attach it to my cattle panels. And the reason this little stick is in here, let me give you a little advice. If all of this covers and it grows and really produces a lot, on a heavy rain, all of this will be collapsed on your head. So that's why I put these
From the weight of the
supports
fruit and the vegetables.
from the weight of the rain and the plants and the vegetables, especially cucumbers. So I use these little supports. I mean, we have plenty, so we don't have to purchase anything like that.
It's nice to have,
It's nice to have your own
affiliation with the sawmill, right?
Yeah, we know the boss real well. The flowers are doing great. And I think it's just a compliment to add flowers and color and beauty and for all the bees. And let's look at some tomatoes.
Yeah, a few weeks back, Mick,
It's been 2 weeks
yep,
since we put out the last video, guys.
or the one about the Electroculture.
Yes, but look at these over here. Let's start right here on these Amish paste. This is what I want to look at. 2 weeks ago, they were barely topping the baskets. Now I've already had to go in and top them and cut the tops out so they'll quit growing. But look at the tomatoes.
That's the largest Amish paste tomato I believe I've ever seen.
Look at that Amish paste tomatoes. That is a big Amish paste tomato. But they're just loaded.
Well, the proof is in the pudding, Mickey.
Definitely. Now these in the coated baskets, these are the Mountain Fresh. These are the determinate. So you can see that they're not just growing crazy. See, we've got more sweet 100s to pick. We just picked some a couple of days ago and man, they are good. But now guys, that's not the tomatoes, the ripe tomatoes that I was referring to about before the 4th of July. We want the big tomatoes, the sandwich tomatoes before the 4th of July. And right now, I'll have to say that I think they're doing pretty well. I think that they're growing like they should. I've had a few issues. I've had some aphids come in on the Jet Stars. I have sprayed them with neem oil, and that really deterred them if it didn't get rid of all of them. So I'm keeping a close watch on that. But I've also noticed some early blight, and so I'm treating that with some hydrogen peroxide mix. And so I've got a couple day regimen on that, and that seems to be helping also. But right now, guys, I can't complain. I mean, you look at the tomatoes, you look at our vegetables, everything seems to be growing well. I will say this, the rain is sporadic. Sometimes we'll have some rain in 1 week, sometimes it's 2 weeks before we have a rain, and then it'll rain for 3 days in a row.
And how's the weather in the Nashville area for the last week or so?
It has been hot, guys. We've already had a heat index 2 days in a row of 105. And this next week, we're going to have a 4-day heat spell, is what I call it. And they're talking 100-degree temperature, which is going to put the heat index way on up. And that is so unusual for here in the hills of Tennessee in June, in the middle of June. That's crazy. I do predict that you can see how good these tomatoes and all the vegetables are doing, but I do predict that we're going to, probably by the end of August, it's going to be over with, because this weather pattern, you know, it's so unpredictable. But we've had so much hot weather that I think it's going to cut off our season pretty short. So we're going to see how that works out. But meanwhile, we're going to keep picking vegetables and we're going to keep canning as many as we can. The straight-necked yellow squash seems to be doing well. We've been picking quite a bit of it. But we like our jet stars. Just look at this, what I call tiers of tomatoes. Just tiers of tomatoes. And on the jet stars, so I sucker these. And you're also going to see.
Can you explain to everyone what you mean by suckering?
Let's show by example. This is what I like. I like to show by example. So this is a 4-foot basket, and I have suckered these plants. And these plants were planted before these and the Amish paste. But I did not sucker the Amish paste, and I haven't suckered the Mountain Fresh. But these are determinate, so they're not going to be as big of a plant. But so my point is, these are not even 4 foot tall, but loaded with tomatoes, just up and down the stem. Our Amish paste are loaded with tomatoes, more sporadic because there's so much more plant. But they're producing really good. And our Mountain Fresh are doing good. It looks like that they're producing like they should. But I'm really excited about our jet stars. And I'm gonna tell you another thing. See, here's an example of that early blight. Is what I call the early blight. Is that when you start seeing the spots on your leaves, you know you've got a blight coming. Now, if it's on the lower foliage, as long as it's below your first set of tomatoes, that's fine. Just clip that off and get it out of your garden. But I've been using hydrogen peroxide, 6 tablespoons to a gallon, and early morning spray it, and do this about 2 or 3 times, 2 or 3 days in a row, and see if it makes a difference. The curly leaf, as you can see, there's leaves that are curled on a lot of these. Now that has the sign of the early blight as well. But this leaf curl, there's about 6 different reasons that it does that, and mostly none of them are anything to worry about.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the heavy rain for 3 days in a row, and then drought all of a sudden.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. No rain for a week, and then all of a sudden you get rain for a week, and so it affects the plant. When the plant is when it's getting too much water, the leaves will curl. When it's not getting enough water, the leaves will curl. So there's a lot of different reasons why it does that, but it's not really a big concern.
I noticed you're still weaving your taller.
We still have to keep the tomatoes inside the baskets. And you can see here that I'm using clips on a lot of the foliage and to the basket. And the reason why is when these plants get more loaded than they are now, if these limbs aren't attached to the basket, then that whole plant will just collapse on top of itself. I had one do that last year, and it just made a little circle, like a little tower of.
It just got too heavy from the tomatoes.
Too much weight of tomatoes. You'll also notice that on these jet stars, when they start reaching the top of the basket, I'll let them go ahead and double out. I'll let one sucker go ahead and go, because I don't want these to be great big plants. So I'll let it double when it gets to the top of that basket, and that way it won't be as much of a plant. Because when it gets to the middle of August, end of August, these tomatoes here are not going to make a lot. Now, they could make great tomatoes, but normally when it gets that hot, they're just not going to produce and make great big tomatoes. But so far, we're well pleased with. I mean, you look, these are 6 feet tall, and 2 weeks ago they were 4 feet tall. Now, like I said, we've had a couple of storms, and I assure you folks that the Electroculture helps. It's just an additional benefit of a technique to use to improve your garden skills. Look at the tomatoes on this plant. Our proof is in the pudding, no doubt, as you said earlier. And that's one of the things that I was talking about, that we didn't want to do a video of tilling the garden and planting each individual plant. We want to show you how we grow it from the finished product, and then we'll reverse it and show you how did it become what it is. And so that's my way of thinking. I sometimes go to the YouTube channel to find some information, and you'll spend 15 minutes watching a video of complete verbiage, is what I call it, before you'll get to the point of even learning something. So I don't want to do that. It's
So
not
what's
that
your goal in making these videos, Mickey?
our goal is to pass it on down.
Yep.
Just to pass it on down.
Yep.
Absolutely. And any homesteaders, gardeners, if there's something, some of the techniques that we use, if you can learn from that, because I've learned a lot from the YouTube homestead channels and different things that I've had to look into. But I think it's important to pass this on down. There's an old saying, and especially this is true for homesteaders and new gardeners. Everything that you're going to learn, it's not something new. It's something that is only new to you. Because all of this, folks, how did they feed themselves 200 years ago? And a big part of that is your watering. If you're out here every day having to water through the next couple of hot months, you're going to spend 2 or 3 hours a day just watering your vegetables. And I would suggest that if you can, anytime you can, use some sort of an irrigation. I really like the drip system. It really doesn't affect your water bill, not enough that you can really notice it. And it is just so handy. You turn the faucet on and you walk away and monitor how long you want to water it. See, that powdery mildew is still out here too. All right, guys, we want to show you the lower side of our tomatoes on our Jet Stars. And we think they're doing pretty good. We'll let you see for yourself that they're really putting on a lot of tomatoes. And that's what we're looking for. Even all the way up, we're still putting on tomatoes. That's a lot of tomatoes. Look at this plant. Still a lot of tomatoes even on that stem, isn't there? You see that drip system working. And I'm going to say that that's made a tremendous difference as far as being able to keep everything watered the way it should. And I keep it monitored pretty well. Now here's your lower tomato, the one that I think will usually go about 1 pound to 1.25 pounds. And there's the same on this one and that one. But so far our Jet Stars are doing really well. Still making tomatoes all the way to the top. And that's what we're looking for. That plant has several on it. And as you can see, these tomato plants are pretty close together, about 20 inches apart. And we removed the foliage at the bottom to make sure we get plenty of airflow. And we think they're doing pretty good. We should have a good harvest. But guys, you never know. A blight, some other disease could come in here in the next 2 or 3 days and just really decimate everything. Not just our tomatoes, but everything. And that's why it's important to stay in your garden. Monitor it 2 or 3 times a day. Now that tomato plant has a lot of big tomatoes in the bottom. But they are loaded with tomatoes. And we're still looking for the first ripe sandwich tomato before the 4th of July. That's what we're counting on, and we'll get another video up before then. As soon as we pick ripe tomatoes, we're going to share that with you. So
Get over here.
let's give.
Thanks for joining us today at Hills Mill Homestead. We appreciate you watching us today. If you liked what you saw, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Mickey gave a lot of great information today on Electroculture, the electric cucumbers, and how it has grown the tomatoes, increased the yield. And I just think that was a lot of great information you shared with everybody today, Nick.
The Electroculture works, folks. Try it out. You know, do a sample test. And I know a lot of you folks, you grow it already this way, but you can see these electric cucumbers. We are picking cucumbers more than we like.
Pickling.
Everybody that we know is getting
sharing.
loads of cucumbers right now. And so that's okay because, you know, we were blessed with a good crop right now.
Yeah.
And so we're going to share that.
Absolutely.
We're going to pass it on around.
Pass it on to the neighbors.
But we're going to get you another update. And we're going to keep up with these tomatoes. We're kind of proud of our tomatoes. They look really good. And so we're going to show the progression all the way to the table.
Yay.
Thanks for watching, guys.
Yeah, red tomatoes coming up.
Yes, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next video.